이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요?
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Quick Korean. Today we will be studying the section titled 이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요? Or will my passport be ready by this Wednesday? Continuing on from last time, the topic of today's lesson is public places. We will learn more vocabulary related to public places and the grammar points 을까요 and 을 거예요. After studying this lesson, you will be able to have conversations where you make guesses and responses. Lastly, in the culture section, we will explore Korean tourism. Well then, let's get started. First, listen carefully to today's dialogue. In today's dialogue, Mrs. Kim is talking on the phone with the local district office. She asked the office employee about making a passport. What kind of questions do you think Mrs. Kim asked the employee? Let's take a listen to their conversation and find out.
이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요?
보통 3일 정도 걸리니까 수요일까지는 나올 거예요.
서류는 뭐가 필요해요?
사진과 신분증을 가지고 오세요.
So, were you able to understand the conversation? Mrs. Kim called the district office to ask a question, right? She asked about what kind of paperwork is needed in order to get a passport. Now, before taking a closer look at the conversation, let's first look at the vocabulary and the grammar that come out in the dialogue. First is the vocabulary section for this lesson. Our first word here is 여권. Now, before we go and say this word together, there's something you need to be very careful about. Now, if you read this as it's written, you would get 여권. Now, unfortunately, in Korean, this word is not pronounced exactly as it's written. It's actually pronounced as 여권. So in other words, this second syllable, the first consonant there is actually tensified, so you get 여권. So now let's go ahead and read the word together and repeat after me. So it would be 여권. 여권. Now let's say you want to travel abroad, and of course you would need a passport or 여권. Now your passport shows who you are and your nationality. So let's go ahead and say this word together one more time. 여권. Now our next word here is 걸리다. Now please read along and repeat after me. 걸리다. So this person here at 2 o'clock starts his homework. He finishes his homework at 4 o'clock. So it took him a total of 2 hours. To say this in Korean, we use 걸리다 and say 2시간 걸렸어요, or that it took 2 hours. Now let's go ahead and say this word together one more time. 걸리다. Now our next word here is 서류. Please read along and repeat after me. 서류. 서류. Now, 서류 means documentation or paperwork. As you can see in the picture here, it's usually documentation that you will fill out. Now you can see on Mr. Lee's desk here, you can see that there's all this documentation or 서류 on his desk. Now let's go ahead and read the word together one more time. 서류. Now our next word here is 필요하다. Now let's go ahead and read along and repeat after me. 필요하다. 필요하다. Now here, 준수 is applying for a passport. However, when applying for a passport, you need your picture and some money. Now in Korean, you could say 사진과 돈이 필요해요, or that you need your picture and money. Now here you can see 필요하다 means to need. Now let's go ahead and say the word together one more time. 필요하다. Now our next word here is 신분증. Now, just like in the case of 여권 or passport from before, this word you have to be a little careful as well. So if you read the word as it's written, you'd read it as 신분증. Now if you were to read it like that, most Koreans wouldn't be able to recognize what you're trying to say. That's because this last syllable here is actually pronounced with a tense consonant, so it would be pronounced 증. So when you write it, however, you have to write it as it's written right here with the normal consonant, but when you pronounce it, you pronounce it with the tensified consonant. So you get 신분증. So let's go ahead and say the word together. Please repeat after me. 신분증. 신분증. Now, your identification card or ID, in Korean, that would be your 신분증, contains information about you. Your student ID, driver's license, passport, etc. are all forms of identification. And such, these would be examples of a 신분증. So let's go ahead and say the word together one more time. 신분증. Now our next word here is 가지고 오다. Please read along and repeat after me. 가지고 오다. 가지고 오다. Now in the picture here it is raining and poor Jimin does not have an umbrella. Luckily for her, her mother, Mrs. Yumi Kim, brings an umbrella to her. Now in Korean we can say 우산을 가지고 왔다. Here 가지고 오다 means to bring something to someone or somewhere. Now let's go ahead and say the word together one more time. 가지고 오다. Now let's review the words that we just learned in this section. Now first, let's say you are going to travel abroad. You will need this to travel. It tells you who you are and what country you are from. What is this? Correct, it is 여권 or passport. Now this person here started studying at 2 o'clock. He finishes at 4 o'clock. So it took him 2 hours. In Korean, we can say 2시간 걸리다 or 걸리다 meaning to take time. Now here on this desk, there's a lot of paperwork. So what word can we say which means paperwork? Right, it would be 서류 or documentation. Now here in this picture, Junsu wants to apply for a passport, but he needs some photos and money. In Korean, we can say 사진과 돈이 필요하다 or to need. Now here in this picture, this tells us Junsu's identification. So what is this an example of? Right, this is an example of a 신분증 or identification. Now here in this picture, it's raining. Poor Jimin doesn't have an umbrella. So what does Mrs. Kim do? She brings her an umbrella. In Korean, we can say 우산을 가지고 오다. Or that she brings her an umbrella. Well done.
이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요?
보통 3일 정도 걸리니까 수요일까지는 나올 거예요.
서류는 뭐가 필요해요?
사진과 신분증을 가지고 오세요.
Now, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the dialogue for this section. Now, if you recall, this dialogue takes place between Mrs. Kim and a district office employee. She wants to make a passport and has some questions about her passport. What kind of questions does she have? Well, let's take a look. So first, Mrs. Kim asks, 이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요? So what she's asking is, by this Wednesday, so 이번 주, meaning this week, Wednesday, this 수요일, she asks, 여권이 나올까요? Or would the passport come out, or would the passport be ready? So she asks using this 나올까요? Now, the employee here responds by saying, 보통 3일 정도 걸리니까. So here, she says, usually it takes around 3 days. So he responds by saying, 수요일까지 나올 거예요. So here, he's not certain. He knows that, usually it takes about 3 days to get the passport. So it probably will come out about Wednesday. So he uses this 나올 거예요. So Mrs. Kim also has another question. She asks, 서류는 뭐가 필요해요? Or, what do I need? What kind of documentation do I need? So the employee responds by saying, 사진과 신분증을 가지고 오세요. So in other words, it will be 사진, photo. 신분증, as we learned earlier, is your identification, and 가지고 오세요, or to come and bring. So he tells Mrs. Kim to bring these two pieces of documentation. So, how do you feel? Do you think Mrs. Kim will be able to make her passport successfully? Well, in Korean, we could say 잘 만들 거예요, or that I think she will be able to make the passport successfully. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the grammar for this section. Our first grammar point is 을까요? Now, if you recall, we already learned 을까요, but here this 을까요 has a different meaning. The one we learned before is when you want to suggest something to someone else and ask for their opinion. Here, this is used to ask about something that has not yet been decided. Now, in Korean, we use this a lot to ask something very politely. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example here. So, recall, Mrs. Kim asked, 이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요? So, we don't know if the passport will come out by Wednesday. So, Mrs. Kim asked the office employee this question using this, as you can see, 나올까요? Why? Because, well, the passport hasn't come out yet, and she wants to know if it'll be ready by then. So, to ask politely, she uses this, 나올까요? So, right here you can see. Let's go ahead and read the sentence together. Please repeat after me. 이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요? Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Our next example here is 지금 준수 씨가 집에 있을까요? So we're asking about 준수 here, and you can see that we have 지금 right now. 준수 씨가 집에 있어요. So is he at home? Now we don't know if he's at home, and someone's probably asking about 준수, and this person is asking politely, do you think 준수's at home? And you can see that here we have the 있다, and we add this 을까요 to get 있을까요. So now let's go ahead and read through the sentence together. We have 지금 준수 씨가 집에 있을까요? Great. Now if we take a look at the usage here, this 을까요 is used together with verbs, and such as here we have 나오다 and 있다. So if we look at 나오다 first, notice that it does not end in a consonant, it ends in a vowel. So there's no consonant there. So in that case, we use this final sound here with the 까요 right here. So what happens is this final sound goes into this empty spot, and we get this 나올까요. Now, what about in the case of 있다? You can see that 있다 ends in a consonant right here. And when it ends in a consonant, we use this 을까요 right here to simply get us 있을까요, like that. So let's go ahead and read through these examples. Please repeat after me. 나오다, 나올까요? 있다, 있을까요? Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the next grammar point. Our next grammar point here is 올 거예요. Now again, we looked at 올 거예요 a little earlier when we were talking about the future. Now the 올 거예요 here has a slightly different meaning. It's used to make a guess about the future, about something you're not sure about. So in English, you can think of it as similar as I think something will happen, or I think that is the case. So let's go ahead and look at an example here. We have 수요일까지 나올 거예요. So is it going to come out by Wednesday? Well, we're not sure. So we can say that we think it's going to come out on Wednesday, or it's probably going to come out Wednesday by using this 나올 거예요 right here. So let's go ahead and read through the sentence together. Please repeat after me. 수요일까지 나올 거예요. Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Our next example here is 준수 씨는 아마 도서관에 있을 거예요. So here it's talking about 준수, and it seems like we don't know for certain if he's at the library, but it's likely he's going to be at the library, or we think he's going to be at the library, or he's probably at the library. Now here, this 아마 here means maybe or probably. So you can see that by using this word 아마, it further emphasizes that this 있을 거예요 is a guess, and it's not something we are 100% certain about. So let's go ahead and read through the sentence together. Please repeat after me. 준수 씨는 아마 도서관에 있을 거예요. Excellent. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the usage of this 올 거예요. Now, this 올 거예요 is used together with verbs such as 나오다 and 있다. And in the case of 나오다, you can see that it does not end in a consonant. In other words, it ends in a vowel. So we use this final consonant 를 거예요. So since this spot here is empty, this final sound here goes into here, and we get what's on top here, this 나올 거예요. Now, in the case of 있다, it ends in a consonant. So when a verb ends in a consonant, we use this 올 거예요 to simply get, as you can see on top, this 있을 거예요. Now, let's go ahead and read through the examples together. Please repeat after me. 나오다, 나올 거예요. 있다, 있을 거예요. Well done. Now, let's go ahead and take another listen to the dialogue for this section.
이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요?
보통 3일 정도 걸리니까 수요일까지는 나올 거예요.
서류는 뭐가 필요해요?
사진과 신분증을 가지고 오세요.
Now, let's take another look at the dialogue. This time, let's read through it together. Listen and repeat after me. 이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요? 보통 3일 정도 걸리니까 수요일까지는 나올 거예요. 서류는 뭐가 필요해요? 사진과 신분증을 가지고 오세요. Now, let's go through the dialogue again. This time, you read the role of the district office employee.
이번 주 수요일까지 여권이 나올까요? 서류는 뭐가 필요해요?
Great. Now let's go through the dialogue once more. This time, you read the role of Mrs. Kim.
보통 3일 정도 걸리니까 수요일까지는 나올 거예요. 사진과 신분증을 가지고 오세요.
Well done. Now it's time for speaking practice. First, we will practice using 을까요, which we learned a little earlier. In this section, we will look at the picture and complete the sentence. Now here you'll notice we have 날씨가 좋다. So which means the weather is good. Now, how will the weather be tomorrow? Will the weather be good? Well, we don't know for sure yet. Therefore, Mrs. Kim asks Mrs. Lee, 내일 날씨가 좋을까요? Now here in this picture, we have a conversation between Mrs. Kim and Junsu, and they want to know, okay, when is 지민이 gonna come home? So here we have 집에 오다, which means to come home. So how would Junsu ask his mother about what time will 지민 be home? He would say, 지민이가 언제쯤 집에 올까요? Now in this section, we will practice using the grammar point 올 거예요, which we learned a little earlier. Now here, Mrs. Kim asks, 비자가 언제 나올까요? Or about when will my visa be ready? So her visa hasn't come out yet, and the district office employee makes a guess that it will come out on Friday. So then how would he respond to Mrs. Kim? So here, the verb we want to use is 나오다. And so his response starts off with 금요일에 나올 거예요. Now here, Mrs. Kim asks, 시간이 얼마나 걸릴까요? Or how much time will it take? Now, Mrs. Kim wants to know how long it will take for her passport to come out, right? So the district office employee doesn't know exactly how long it will take. However, he knows that it'll probably take about a week. So how does he respond to Mrs. Kim? Well, he starts off by saying 일주일이 걸릴 거예요, or that it will take about 1 week. Now it's time for listening practice. This is a conversation between Mrs. Kim and the district office employee. Now, Mrs. Kim has some questions about a Chinese visa. What kind of questions do you think she will ask? Listen carefully to the conversation.
이번 주 금요일까지 중국 비자가 나올까요?
아니요. 요즘 휴가철이어서 2주일 정도 걸릴 거예요.
서류는 뭐가 필요해요?
여권과 사진을 가지고 오세요.
Were you able to understand the conversation? Let's check your understanding by answering some questions. Our first question here, question number 1, asks, 중국 비자는 얼마나 걸려요? Or how long does the Chinese visa take? Now our answer choices here are 일주일, 1 week, or 이주일, 2 weeks. So do you remember how long it takes? Correct. It takes 2 weeks, so the correct answer would be 이주일. Now, our next question, question number 2 asks, 서류는 뭐가 필요해요? Or what kind of documentation is needed? Now, our answer choices here are 신분증과 서류, or identification and documentation, or 여권과 사진, passport and photo. So, what does Mrs. Kim need? Right, she needs her passport and photo, so the correct answer would be 여권과 사진. Excellent. Now it's time for the vocabulary plus section. Here, we will learn more words related to public places. Now, our first word here is 여권 발급 신청서. Now, if we break this up, here, this 발급, this part here, means to give or to issue something. And the second part here, this 신청서, means an application form. Now, to apply for a passport in Korea, you would fill out an application form like something here in this picture. Now, this application for a visa is called a 여권 발급 신청서. It literally means passport issuance application form. So let's say I want to get a passport and go apply. The employee would probably tell me something like this. 여권 발급 신청서를 쓰세요. Or to go fill out the application form. Now our next word here is 여권 신청 비용. Now when applying for a passport, it costs money. So you can see here in this picture we have some money here. Now this would be the passport application fee, or in Korean they say 여권 신청 비용. Now as you can probably guess, the 비용 part here means fee or expense. Now if you go apply for a passport, you might want to know how much the fee is. You can find that out by asking 여권 신청 비용이 얼마예요? Now our next word here is 전자여권. Now 전자여권, or an electronic passport, is one that has a chip in it. So you can see here, all these passports here have this little chip icon on it. So now what's so special about this? Well, what's so special about it is that a machine can read the information from the passport from this little chip right here. So about these electronic passports, you can say 요즘에는 전자여권으로 바뀌었어요. Or that lately everything's been switched over to these electronic passports. Now our next word here is 비자가 필요하다. Now if you want to go abroad, in most cases you're gonna need a visa. Now in Korean we would say 비자가 필요해요. Now Junsu wants to travel to a certain country. He wants to know if he needs a visa to enter that country. So he asks, 그 나라는 비자가 필요해요? Now our next word here is 비자를 만들다. Now Junsu needs a visa, but Junsu doesn't have a visa, so he has to go and get a visa. In Korean, to say get a visa, we say 비자를 만들다, which literally means to make a visa. So Junsu, in this picture here, has arrived at the embassy. And again, why did Junsu come to the embassy? In Korean, we could say 비자를 만들러 왔습니다, or that he came to apply for a visa. Now our next word here is 비자가 나오다. Now Junsu has applied for the visa, and in a few days, his visa will be issued. Now in Korean, we say 비자가 나오다, which literally means the visa has come out. Now Junsu applied for the visa, and he doesn't know when the visa will be issued. Therefore, he asks, when will the visa be ready? By saying, 비자가 언제 나올까요? Now, let's review the words that we just learned through this exercise here. If you look at the instructions, it says, 관계 있는 것끼리 연결하세요. Or, in other words, match the picture with the related word below. Now, let's look at the first picture. Now, what is this? Right. It looks like you can see there's a chip there, which suggests it's an electronic passport. Now, how do we say electronic passport in Korean? Right, we would say 전자여권. Now, if we look at the second picture, what is this? Right here, we mark it. Looks like the passport application form. Now in Korean, we would say 여권 발급 신청서. Now lastly, in the third picture here, Chunsu wants to travel, but the country he wants to go to won't let just anyone in. So what would he need to go to that foreign country? Right, he would probably need a visa, so we would say 비자가 필요하다. Well done! Finally, it is time for the Korean culture section. Do you like to travel? Well, I really like traveling. If you decide to come to Korea, it would be nice to know about the tourist attractions ahead of time, right? So today, we will be exploring Korean tourism. Now, let's go ahead and take a closer look.
한국 관광. 만약 여러분이 한국에 관광하러 가신다면 한국관광공사 홈페이지에 대한민국 구석구석 코너로 들어가 보십시오. 여행에 유용한 정보를 얻을 수 있습니다. 또한 관광 안내 전화 1330번을 통해 연중무휴 24시간 관광 안내 서비스와 통역 서비스를 받을 수 있습니다.
Now, let's go over what we learned today. Continuing from the previous lesson, today's topic was public places. We learned about vocabulary related to public places and the grammar points 을까요 and 을거예요. Finally, in the culture section, we explored Korean tourism. So, how do you feel? Do you think you can make guesses and answers in Korean? Great! This brings us to the end of this lesson. See you next time!